I'm gonna start by saying that the Fujifilm X-T4 is my favorite camera ever, and I owned a few cameras in the past. I owned the Nikon D3100, the Canon 550D, the 500D before that one as well, the Canon 70D, the 80D, then I got a Canon 6D, and then later on I bought a Canon EOS R. And I know I've mentioned this in past videos, but today's video is gonna be all about the Fujifilm X-T4, so let's jump straight into it. It's been almost 2 years since I got this camera, and to this day I still get as excited, or sometimes even more excited, to shoot with it and create with it than when I first got it, and honestly that's saying a lot, at least to me. There's a lot of reasons why I love this camera, but I'd say that it might be due to its compact size or the fact that it's so light, and honestly even the fact that the camera looks really cool. And I know a lot of people say that, oh, the way a camera looks doesn't affect the shooting experience, and honestly I'm gonna call that bullshit, because it does. If a camera looks pretty and if you actually connect with the way the camera looks, I'm sure it's gonna inspire you to pick it up more often and to make more content with it. And honestly, every single thing that motivates you to do that and that inspires you matters, so there's that. With the recent film photography resurgence and the fact that film has gotten more and more expensive over the last years, a lot of people turn to Fuji cameras because of the way they look. And in the case of the X-T4, it's got these really cool dials on top that resemble a 35mm SLR camera, or rangefinder camera if you would, and that also provide access to a lot of settings such as shutter speed and different shooting modes, as well as features like film simulations. I'm not gonna lie, those beautiful film recipes on Fuji X Weekly were one of the biggest reasons why I got this camera in the first place, and honestly I think that was totally worth it. I didn't get this camera as an alternative to shooting film, but I definitely thought that it would somehow complement my film photography workflow, and it did. Although these film simulations will never be able to replace the unique feel and the look and the colors that you get when shooting film, honestly I think they look pretty cool, and they're also very customizable. There's a bunch of different things that you can tweak and adjust, and you can make your own film recipes. You can get one from like Fuji X Weekly, which I just mentioned, and customize it to a point where it's just a new film recipe and it's something unique to you, and it's a whole thing. You've got a few built-in film simulations in camera, but again, as soon as you get tired of shooting with those, you can check out Fuji X Weekly. There's a bunch of different recipes that will get you really hyped up to try them out and just to shoot everyday stuff and see the kind of results that you get with them, and it's just fun to use these cameras. I also want to mention that I know they're JPEGs, they're not RAWs, but there's still a bit of overhead to edit or adjust a few settings in post. I thought it was worth mentioning that. Back in 2011 and 2012, when I started my photography journey, I've always been told that the more megapixels a camera would have and the bigger the sensor size, the better my final images would be, and that I had to shoot with this pro lens. In my case, because I was shooting predominantly Canon, I would need to get the L series lens and the ones with the widest aperture, otherwise my work would suck. At one point I got so much into gear and I got a bunch of lenses that I would pretty much carry around with me everywhere, and they would never leave my backpack, honestly. Naturally, I kind of developed a not so healthy relationship with gear, and I think it's natural again because in this day and age we're surrounded by social media and You've got your creators saying that you need to buy the latest and greatest, otherwise your work will become redundant and it won't be up to par with the most recent equipment. And again, that's bullshit. Of course, there are benefits to that kind of equipment, but all cameras and all lenses serve different purposes. So nowadays, I still follow a lot of creators on YouTube that still talk a lot about gear, but because I made up my own mind, and because I take everything with a huge grain of salt, whenever I need to buy something new, obviously I do my own research and I look up the pros and cons of a piece of gear, and that's what you should do as well. Getting the X-T4 removed a lot of obstacles from my shooting process, and I just find that I pick up this camera pretty much every day or every other day, and I just find myself documenting pretty much everything that's around me. And again, to me, that's what matters. This camera is super easy to carry around, either in like a shoulder camera strap or in a backpack. And even when I'm doing a more serious body of work, let's say a portrait shoot, I have no issues whatsoever shooting with it, and I pretty much always, I'm gonna say always, get amazing results with it. And I photograph pretty much everything that's around me, and that includes taking pictures of my dogs because they're beautiful, and I take pictures of my amazing girlfriend, and I take pictures of her when she's cooking or when she's doing random stuff around the house, or even when she's working. I like to take a few snaps to document our everyday life. Even if a moment seems like mundane, you never know what that picture is gonna develop into in the future, and I don't know, it's just really special to me. At the end of the day, again, I'm gonna say the same thing. This camera allows me and motivates me to shoot a lot and to document my everyday life, and that's what matters to me. At this point, honestly, the camera just feels like an extension of myself. Obviously, I do YouTube videos, and for those of you that don't know, the X-T4 is actually the camera that I used to record these videos, and this is where specs still matter a lot to me, but this camera allows me to shoot in 4K, and I usually record in 10-bit internal and in f-log, and the color and the detail and the overall feeling that I'm able to get from this footage is amazing in post. And I'm no colorist, far from it, but when I compare it to something like the f-log that I used to get in the EOS R, it's just different. Like, Canon colors are beautiful, but the feel isn't the same. I don't quite know how to explain it, honestly. I currently own two lenses for my Fuji X-T4, and those are the 16mm 2.8, which is the lens that I'm using to record this video right now, and my Fuji 35mm f2. I use this 16mm lens to shoot like 95% or more of my videos, and sometimes I use it to shoot street photography and landscape photography as well, because those images can sometimes benefit from a wider field of view. And I mainly use my 35mm f2 for portrait work or random photos around the house, and I really like the field of view that you get when shooting video, but the autofocus on that lens isn't that good for video, so there's that. This 35mm lens is sharp, light, I never miss focus with it. That's one of the benefits of having a smaller sensor size as well, and it's just reliable and cheap. Honestly, I've got no complaints about it. Oh, it's also weather resistant. Going back to those obstacles that I feel like this camera removed that I mentioned earlier, I think the reason why I document with it so much is because it just feels more natural compared to the other cameras that I had, and it's probably also aligned with a change in mentality from my side, but what matters is that I'm really happy with my Fuji. If I had to recommend this camera to anyone, I would recommend it to someone who just wants to cut the crap and just take photos. Just go back to the basics, to the fundamentals, and take photos. That's it. As always, I talked too much, and that's gonna be it for me today. So I'm gonna ask you to like the video if you liked it, and definitely drop a comment down below and let me know if you ever tried out a Fuji camera, if you own one, if you would ever consider switching to Fuji, and if you are switching to Fuji, why would you choose it on top of the current camera brand that you shoot with right now? And I don't know, let's just start a conversation. Let me know what's on your mind in the comments and I'll definitely get back to you. Also definitely consider subscribing if you wanna see more of my content and support my channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.